Laura, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah.
More importantly, for supporting the DLA Piper Real Estate Summit.
Thank you for having me. DLA has been a fantastic partner of ours, both as a tenant, but also as attorneys across the board.
Great, we feel the same way. So one of the things that that Hines is really well known for and set apart by is its analytics. You guys are very thoughtful about how you make your investments. Are there any particular macro trends that you guys are seeing that are changing or informing how you're thinking about investing going forward?
Sure. It's a big question. A lot of ways I could answer that. I will say we have taken research in-house over the past really 10 years, and as part of that have really taken a proprietary view on our investing and how informing what markets and where and how we're underwriting. I think as part of that, a lot of global trends, but one thing in a little bit more of an abstract way that we're really excited about right now is just a result of really the past 10 years of a fantastic environment for real estate investing. What that's really meant is a big shift in allocation towards real estate, and that's meant a lot of liquidity coming into the industry. Recently, that's made it somewhat hard to invest in this environment. Opportunities to find the ARB and really find what we call beta across markets is much more challenging today because of the liquidity in the market. You can almost assume that when you're buying something is fairly priced at that point. And so for us, what that means, what we're excited about on that front is then how do you make money? It's what you do while you own the asset. And being an operator, being a player that comes at it from a developer's mindset, we think plays to our strengths in terms of how we can create outsized value with our investments. And so, I think we're now starting to think about how do we apply that more broadly in open-ended fund structures and really bring that operator's mindset directly to our investors in creating value as we own and operate assets. I think the other piece that goes into that is right now the stock is really is fairly aged, and that huge office wave of the 80s and 90s is now 30 years old. And so really coming in and thinking about how do we reimagine these assets, and not only from the physical side of the asset, but also from a service side, and sort of using our vertical integration to really rethink the assets. It's something that we're really excited about moving forward.
So it sounds like what you're describing is the distinction between making money from a financial perspective versus making money from an operating perspective, and the advantage you guys have because in addition to being investors, you're also great operators.
Yeah, and I would define it a little, so we define it in beta and alpha, where buying an asset in Seattle versus buying an asset in New York, and making a market decision, and versus if you're buying asset A versus asset B in Seattle, how are you making more money at one than the other? And so ideally you're performing on both fronts. But we certainly are excited about what we feel we can bring to, call it the alpha side of real estate investing.
And that is where the operating value, that's where the alpha comes from, it's from the operating value. Interesting comment about the aging of that whole generation of office
A lot
stock.
of them are Hines buildings.
How does that connect with how you think about workplace generally?
Sure.
Where people are spending their days working what the right environments to prepare for, to meet that market?
Sure. I think what it really means is taking assets and understanding what tenants want, what people want out of their workspace. When you think about, 10 years ago, you were competing against the office tower down the street. Now you're competing against the office tower down the street, plus the coffee shop down the street, plus someone's home office, plus a co-working space. And I think you really have to think about what the friction is that's keeping someone competing for someone's attention necessarily in an office tower. And as we think about it, it's how can we bring those services, bring those amenities to an employee, to a tenant within their working space so that they're not being competed for that attention. And so, I think that's different at every asset, but you are starting to see a real commingling of how space is used, how services are brought across asset classes, and we are absolutely trying to use our experience across all 4 asset classes to really inform how tenants are thinking differently.
Let's take that amenity and service model and just focus on one particular sector, and that's senior housing. Obviously, there's this huge demographic thing happening. How are you guys thinking about it, and how are you taking advantage of it?
Sure. I think it is a really exciting potential opportunity in coming years. I think there has been...
Says the younger person in this conversation.
I think what's interesting is rethinking it. I think the past 10 years there actually has been a bit of an oversupply, almost anticipating a bit too early this demographic shift. But you look at the stock of senior housing, and it's really, it's a little sad actually, and really taking an opportunity, even in sort of low and mid-rise stick-built or senior housing, there are huge opportunities to increase the user's experience, if you will, in those spaces. And so we're really excited about that from a development opportunity. On the another piece of the spectrum we're excited about is finding opportunities in underserved high-end markets. So Manhattan is a great example. We found that the supply-demand dynamic in Manhattan was really out of whack for senior housing, and really being able to deliver at that high end of the asset class for that demand was a huge missing link. And so we've also spent time at the high end of the asset class and serving the needs there. But I think that same amenitization, that same thinking about the user experience is going to come in. It is a bit of a challenging space because you're working with operators in a way that we don't necessarily in other asset classes. And so we're still navigating that piece of it as well.
Got it. Laura, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.